Testing mic. Looks good. All right. All right, hey, this is Yazuki Wolf. I think I'm about maybe half a minute early, but I'll figure I'll go ahead and get started now. I just wanted to make sure that all the settings were right before the time came. So, anyways, we're going to continue with our Friday night art stream series, and I'm going to hopefully finish this drawing today, and then next week we'll try to work on something else. Not sure exactly what I want to do next. I think I kind of want to get back to like my fantasy roots and do like I don't know, like goblins or orcs or something along those areas. For those of you who don't know, like before I actually got a job in Japan, I used to like really like D&D and like table talk RPGs and just like fantasy stories like Lord of the Rings and things like that. So since that's stuff that I generally don't get to draw at work, I think it would be nice to do that on my free time. So that might be something I might do for a future episode, or I might also do some other tutorials. Like there were some things, and you guys can let me know what you're interested in. Like one thing, for example, I noticed is that at work right now, I've been doing a lot of sort of like what do you call it, like items or like architectural things and like designing like I'm not sure how much I can actually say because a lot of it's still kind of NDA related, but I can say like like vehicles and things like that. So I found that a lot of times I draw in a very similar style to a 3D artist, and actually sort of the way that it's kind of worked out. Um, let me get started on the drawing first, and then I'll come back to that a little bit. But let me just say what I said, what I had done while I wasn't on the stream. I looked into this drawing a little bit more, and I found out that the issue that we were having last time. I don't know how many people saw last stream, but there was an issue that we have here where the color is kind of for some reason we're getting two colors here, and I could not for the life of me figure out why. Because so you go down to this layer, and if I do an Alt click, for some reason my computer is really slow, so it's going to take a while to. There it goes, it registered it. So when you Alt click it, it turns off every other layer except for this layer and the layer that it's clipped to, right? And with every other layer gone, it still shows up as there being this kind of like discoloration here. And I was like, what the heck? Why is it like that? Because I could erase it, and then when I draw it back, oh hold on, why is it not drawing back? Okay, no, that's I think the color did I not select the right color? There we go. Okay, so I draw it back, and there it is again. It's like where is this thing coming from? Because there's no other layers here. And so what I finally figured out is apparently I don't know exactly how this had happened, but so like the layer below it, um, let's see here if I could isolate that layer. It's gonna take a while. So this layer, it's supposed to be 100% opaque, but for some reason, if you look at this, it's somewhat transparent. So what looks like what's happening is that this side here, this probably is not particularly visible on the stream, but like this side here is slightly transparent, and then this part here is opaque. I don't know when that happened. The only thing I could guess is like maybe when I deleted the other layers, maybe I one of the layers had like a transparency of like 70% or something, and that got transferred when I was combining them. I really don't actually know. I'd have to look back and try to figure it out. But anyways, that seems to be the issue. So all we have to do to solve that is let's take uh, let's take the color we want, which it will be. Okay, hold on a second. I have to isolate the layer again. So usually at work when I do this, like I click and it instantaneously isolates the layer, but for some reason my computer at home doesn't want to do that. All right, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna find the color that we want, which is this is the 100% opaque color, and let me bring out back all the other layers. Okay, and now all I have to do is Control Alt and click on that layer. I thought it was Control Alt. Maybe it's just Control. Yeah, sorry, Control. Yeah. So Control, click on that layer so that I have the whole layer selected. That should be all the layer that had the transparency issue. So you see here, like we got this line here. I think there were some other parts up here where it was doing the same thing. yeah, like see like around here you can see there's like little parts there that are the color's kind of off, and some parts here too. So all I should have to do to fix that is just fill this in again with the color at 100% opacity, and it should fix it. Let's see. Oh, sorry, wrong layer. This layer. There we go. So now that is fixed. So problem solved. I don't know how that had happened, but yep, that was the reasoning for that. So I'm going to go ahead and try to finish this up. It's going to be rendering through the rest of the layers, and while I render, I'm going to go back to the topic I was talking about a little bit earlier about ideas for the future videos. So I've come into a situation now at work where let me do a different layer besides her. I'm going to do her skin color last, I think. Here we go. Let's do this layer. So at work I am technically a 2D artist, but I'm part of the 3D team. So it's a little weird because like I don't really participate in the 2D artists meetings. I'm always in the 3D artist meetings, and part of the reason for that is that I do 2D art for the 3D artists. So essentially, I could say that I'm a concept artist, but they don't really have the idea of they don't have the concept of a concept artist in a lot of like smaller Japanese gaming studios, especially like mobile companies. So I'm fulfilling the role of a concept artist, but they just don't call it a concept artist. So I'm a 2D artist that takes part in the 3D artists team. So essentially, what I'm doing is they would like the planner, and planner is what they call a game designer in America and other countries. It's kind of confusing, but so the planner is the group of people that are planning out the game. The planner will come up with a concept like, hey, we want to do this new stage, and we want it to have like I don't know, sakura blossoms or something. I don't know, and they're like, okay, so let's make some enemies that are based off of like spring, because you know sakura, the cherry blossoms bloom in spring. And so then they would pass that over to me, and they usually have like a document. And I actually used to, oh, I forgot I had changed this these settings a little bit because I was doing a different work earlier. Okay, there we go. But they would I used to do documents like that before, actually, when I was working as a planner as well. And the document would just have like screenshots of sort of what they're looking for, and like it would have like a written statement about like, you know, what they want the point of the character to be, or the whatever the thing you're designing is. And then they would pass that over to me, and I'd do about, I don't know, 3 or 4 different patterns per character. So like usually I don't just do one character at a time. Usually it would be like they want like, I don't know, 6 new enemies. So then I would do about 3 to 4 different patterns of all 6 enemies. So it'd be like, I don't know, like 20 different like quick roughs, which would take like, I don't know, a day or 2. I don't know. And then I would show them that, and they would decide which one they like, and then I would make a more detailed rough of the ones that they liked, and then finally I would do sort of like I want to say like a T pose, but it's not necessarily a bipedal character, so it's not always going to be a T pose, but just like a all the different angles. So you get like the left angle, the right angle, and like see it from above and everything. And then you would pass that over to the 3D artist, and the 3D artist would take that illustration, which would have sort of like it would have one illustration that's in like a 3/4 view, and then it would have like the straight forward view, the top view and everything. And the 3D artist would take that, and he would put all the, I don't know how many of you are familiar with how the 3D how people do 3D models usually, but they would in the 3D space they would put like the front view and the top view in the different areas, so that when they turned the camera they could align their 3D model with the different views. And so essentially they would then use my drawing to then create the 3D model. So it's like my original concept turns into a 3D, what was it called in English? Like a 3D layout sketch. I don't know what you call it. And then that goes to the 3D artist, who actually turns it into a 3D model. So it's really cool. I'm actually really enjoying it, and it's nice because we just released a game like maybe 2 weeks ago, and a lot of the things that I had designed, because I designed probably 90% of the I don't know what you call it, like non-essential enemy characters. So like the main characters were designed by an actual like famous manga artist, but the non-essential stuff I was able to like I was able to design a lot of it. And so it's cool to see that my designs actually turned into 3D models that are actually moving and like doing stuff on screen. It's pretty cool. It is a little weird sometimes when people ask me. So like when I say that the game we were working on came out, and they're like, okay, what? Show me what you did in it. And it's like, well, I could show you the concepts that I came up with because you know my designs were responsible for these 3D models or whatnot, but I can't really say like, um, hey Nandayo and Boy and Elijah. I'm not sure if you're still here. It looks like you showed up a little early, but if you are, welcome. It's good to see you again, Nandayo. And where was I saying? So it's hard to say like yeah look at this screen right here. I drew that thing. Like I don't have anything like that. Well, actually I do. I did do some of the UI like I did some of the what you calls it like items. So like the illustrations for items. But in the actual gameplay and the actual like illustrations and stuff, like none of the stuff I drew is actually in there. Like I draw a concept which then turns into an asset which is put into the game. So for me, I actually I kind of prefer it that way. It is a little awkward like when you're talking to people that don't really understand like the workflow of a game design because they're like, oh, so what did you draw in it? I was like, well, I didn't draw this, but this 3D thing that's moving here, that was my concept. Like the thing that I drew is not actually in the game, but trust me, I drew stuff. You know, it's like, but but I actually prefer it that way because it allows me to kind of just focus on the design and not have to worry too much about um, the not having to worry about the final touches, like all the sort of like I don't know what you call it, like the busy work. And I don't know if I want to say busy work, but like the extra work that you have to do. Like for example, right here, I'm noticing even as I'm drawing this that I have all these little like lines that are going a little bit outside of here, and so in my current workflow when I'm just being a concept artist for the most part, this is perfectly fine. I could pass this off and be like, yeah, well you get the idea of what it's supposed to be. It's not a big deal. But if I was doing the finalized illustration that was going to actually go into the game, then that would mean I have to come back and be like, okay, let me find the outline layer. Okay, where is it? I don't even know which layer this is on. Um, so many layers. It should be the boots layer or the clothing layer maybe. Let's see. Which layer is the clothing layer? Uh, there we go. Yeah, it may have been actually easier to just do one layer for the inking, but each style has its advantages and disadvantages. So yeah, then I have to go back in here and actually clean up all these. Like, okay, that looks a little bit cleaner. Okay, all right, that looks okay. Let's go to the next one. Some lines that are out of some ink that is going out of the lines there, right? So then you would clean that up. And so there's just a lot of like little like detail work like that I don't have to worry about in my current workflow, which is kind of liberating, I guess, because you could just focus more on just coming up with cool ideas and coming up with cool designs. And also another thing, I may have mentioned this in one of my other streams, but I don't actually draw characters like this anymore, really. I did mention in a video that I made, it was called like the unavoidable moe style. And if you don't know what moe is, MOE, like check out that video, unavoidable moe style. I go into all the details and like kind of the history of what it is and where it came from and whatnot. But that's sort of like a style that I said is essential for you to know if you're going to work in Japan. And I still believe that, but I do think that I've come to a point where I've kind of escaped it. So I'm probably gonna do another video at some point that we're gonna talk about escaping the moe style, where I no longer have to do this style. Now, if this is the style that you want to do and you want to do like moe, and even actually moe is actually even is not, this isn't exactly moe per se, but I mean if you want to do more of like that, the kind of cute girl type style, like then you're good to go. Like Japan, that's a very very popular thing. It's just something that I'm not as particularly skilled at because as I mentioned, my history comes more back from the like D&D TSR style fantasy drawings, And so even in Japan, I like a lot of Japanese art and everything, but I think I was more drawn to like if you look at like Final Fantasy and like the concept work for that, like Amano's work and things, like it's not really like the cutesy Japanese like moe style. It's Japanese, but it has more of like kind of it's more based in that like sort of like I don't know what we would call it, like a high fantasy culture, I guess. Um, and so that's more what I'm into, and so that's actually what I wanted to do when I came to Japan. But it was really hard to find work like that because in the last maybe 10 years or so, just the sort of the moe style has kind of taken off and kind of defined the market in a lot of ways. Okay, that looks pretty good. Oh, I have a darker color too. All right, kind of forgot about that one. And I think there was some point to that story. Where was I going with that? Oh yeah, so what I was gonna say is that hey, that's another part I'd have to clean up, but I'm not gonna worry too much about it today. But like, yeah, if this was the professional like final illustration, I'd have to clean up little things like that. So you see, I'll see that it's not like one perfect line. It has like this little indent in the middle, but I'm not gonna worry about that right now. So what happened then is since I was in the in the 3D team primarily, I've noticed that as of lately I've been drawing more like a 3D artist than a 2D artist, even when I'm drawing in 2D. And currently I'm actually learning ZBrush, so I'm actually almost converting completely to 3D now. But even when I draw in 2D, I often do it like I think a lot like a 3D artist, and I don't know. I never really seen a video about that, and that might be something that's unique to me. I don't know, but I'm sure there's other people that have kind of discovered this as well. But I haven't really seen videos about it, so that might be something I might try to do in a future live stream or like separate video. I'm not sure, but like so to show you an example of what I mean, like when I'm drawing, say, a tank or something, like I noticed that a lot of times I don't just start drawing like a tank, like okay, here's my tank, with the thing, and that I think as a 2D artist, that's probably a more viable way to do it. It's very very common way to do it, where you just like get into just drawing the actual shapes, but or just drawing the actual like image that you want. But I noticed that when I'm drawing, I'm often like drawing like where I'll be like, okay, let me get I use the perspective tool. So like I don't know if you know in Clip Studio you have in I think it's in where is it? Is it in layers? Yeah, is this it? Yeah, there you go. So under layers it has your perspective rulers, and you can put like a 2-point perspective. And so now I have these perspective lines here where it forces all my strokes to line up with the perspective. So then I would be like, okay, let me use this perspective tool. Usually I would actually set up the perspective properly, but okay, here we go from here. That would work. Yeah, these perspective points are way too close together. Hold on a second. I want to do this quickly, but I guess I have to actually do it properly. Okay, that's probably better. And if you don't really understand what I'm doing right now, don't worry, I'll probably do an actual video about this in the future, but yeah, still too. I think the horizon point needs to be higher, so let's move that up here maybe. Okay, something like that should probably be doable. There we go. So yeah, I notice a lot of times when I'm drawing things, I'll be like, okay, let me make a box in perspective, and then I'm gonna carry that box up like this, and then I'd be like, okay, so I'm making a tank, so it needs to have like a turret on the top, and I kind of like break that up and split it up into threes. And I'm doing this very quickly, so usually I would do this a lot more. I would be a lot more precise about things, but for now, just to show you quickly. And so I don't know how many of you have actually tried like Blender or any 3D software, but I noticed that even though I'm drawing in 2D, I'm kind of approaching it in the same way that you would approach it in 3D, where it's like you're taking a plane and then you're extruding it, and then you're cutting out like another plane, and then you're extruding that plane. And then like maybe I'll like, okay, you have to have something on the side, so I'll take a plane here and then extrude that plane. And then there we go. So yeah, usually I would do this a lot cleaner so it wouldn't be this messy, but and then after I have those squares, then I would go in and I would start like beveling essentially, where I would like take the curves and like kind of like crease. Sorry, I'm not actually set up for this right now. How do I turn the thing off? It was a Control 2? Yeah, there's, okay. So then I would go in here and I would start like beveling these curves, or these creases, so that it's not so so blocky. And yeah, I don't want to spend too much time with this, but you get the idea, where essentially I would be creating it, but doing it in a very like perspective-based approach, which reminds me a lot of 3D art. So that's sort of a kind of a approach to 2D art that I haven't really seen anyone talk about before. And I don't think I really covered it very well in this either, because it's kind of complex to explain. So I might try to at some point do a future illustration of some sort of architectural element, some sort of like I don't know, like a castle or maybe a tank or something. And when I do that, I'll kind of talk about using perspective and all those types of things, and kind of approaching 2D in a 2D art as from a 3D artist perspective, so that you're thinking of your art in three-dimensional space. But for now, let's get back to what we were doing. All right, so I think the shadows are working pretty well for that. There's a little place up there I want to add a few more. I was also thinking about doing some videos where I would talk a little bit about my old D&D days. I actually was a dungeon master for like I don't know, 7 years. And I have a lot of stories. I don't know if any of you have ever watched the Spoonie one. I mean, he's not really doing anything right now, and it's kind of sad because he kind of self-destructed. But back in the day, he used to make some really good videos, and he had this thing called Counter Monkey, where he would just tell stories about when he used to run D&D games, and he would talk about the adventures they had and things. And I have a lot of stories I want to tell too, but I'm always scared that I'm stretching my channel out too much, because I have so many things I want to touch on. And from what I can tell in the algorithm, it seems that the way that YouTube works now is that if if you don't click on a video regularly, it stops showing up in your feed. So having a very diverse range of topics can actually hurt a channel, I believe. I mean, it's hard to say because YouTube doesn't really tell you straight out like how it works. But just from what I've observed of how channels that I click on, how it acts, and things I've heard from other content creators, it seems like it may be better to kind of what's the word? Streamline it a little bit more, where like you have one specific thing you do on your specific channel, which then makes me wonder, okay, maybe I should make some separate channels for different things. But then the issue there is that I don't do this full time, so then I don't know how often I'd be able to upload if I had different channels for each thing, right? Also in news, in terms of the learning hiragana game that I mentioned in my first stream, I have a programmer friend of mine has joined up, and we've been progressing a lot. There's not really a lot to show, like, because he basically just went into the background of all my horrible scripts, because I'm not a programmer and I was just trying my best, and he cleaned everything up and made it more, what's the word? He made it so that it would grow better, where it would scale better. That's what I was looking for, so that we can it wouldn't just be like the one initial prototype, but even if we expand on it in the future, like maybe even make it like for not just a hiragana, but have kana and make kanji in the future and other things, we'd have a framework to work from. And so now, since he's doing that, it's kind of freed me up to work on the art side more. So I'm going to start doing animations of like character animations for like attack animations and things like that. And so hopefully I'll be able to give you a sort of like approximate feeling of around when that's going to be available. my plan is to kind of release the, I don't know if release is the right word, but to make the initial builds available, especially for people on my channel to just try for free. And I don't know, eventually if we get it like so it's actually like fully like a full-on game that we release on Steam, then maybe we'll put it up there for like, I don't know, $5 or something. I don't know, 6, who knows. We'll figure it out. But the initial ones I want for you guys to just be able to use as a study tool to learn your Hiragana and everything. So the initial builds will be free, for at least when they first come out. Hey, I'm gonna try to pronounce your name, but it's here Horiad, Ale Horiad, Ale Joriad. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that okay. I like your little character icon for your avatar. So what were we talking about? So I was talking about, yeah, with my channel, I have a lot of ideas of things I want to try to do some new videos in terms of art, kind of get back to some fantasy roots, and maybe also talk, and that might be an interesting idea to maybe I could do some fantasy art while telling stories about my old D&D games, of like the different characters we made. And it was interesting, the D&D game I played, you know, I could tell that I always was into making games even when I was younger, because I didn't want to just play D&D as it was. You know, I had to, like, for lack of a better word, I had to mod it. Like in Skyrim terms, you know, how you would mod Skyrim. I basically modded D&D, so I made my own homebrew, which was so homebrewed that it's hard. Like, it's hardly even D&D anymore. You know, it has very specific rules. Like, I mixed in rules from like Mech Warrior, because I remember I played Mech Warrior for a little while. I was like, oh, I like these mechanics. I'm gonna put these in my D&D games. So like Mech Warrior rules are mixed in there. I think there was like Shadowrun or some other things too that I put in there. And then I had my own things that I just came up on the fly. Like, I remember reading like I remember it got a little too complicated at one point, because I was reading what's his name, Bruce Lee's book, Tao de Jeet Kune Do, the Tao of Jeet Kune Do. And I was like, oh, like fighting is there's like so much stuff that goes on in fighting, and the D&D game it's still like just straightforward. They make it more complicated. I like add all these different things from like from Bruce Lee's book, and then eventually I realized I went too far and I had to like tone it back a little bit. But yeah, like I had like things where like the different types of armor you have would have different like resistances, like things that you see in PC games now. You know, where you like if you play like ARPG like Diablo or something, how you would have like certain items have a strength to piercing or a strength to blunt weapons, or is weak against chopping damage or something like that. I had all that in my D&D game way back in like the 2nd edition, when that was not even a thing. Oh, and then in terms of the setting, like I didn't even play. I played a couple D&D like actual D&D settings. Like I think there was what was it called? It was like there was the Aladdin like Arabian one. Forgot what it was called. And then Al-Qadim. I think it was Al-Qadim. And then we played through a couple other ones, but for the most part we made our own world, so it's completely original stories and original characters and everything. So have a lot of stories to tell there. Yeah, hopefully we can get this illustration done today. I think we're progressing pretty well. And feel free to let me know any ideas you guys have for future videos. Especially, I know that there's a few people that kind of mentioned that they were watching after the stream, so not live. So even if you're watching afterwards, like, go ahead and put in the YouTube comments things that you want me to touch on in future videos. Because really, I just want this to be kind of a way to any kind of questions you have or thoughts or ideas and anything in regards to like Japan, art, or gaming. Just let me know and I'll talk about it. Because there's only so much I can say about the actual art that I'm drawing. Like I could tell you the techniques that I'm doing and things, but you know, once I tell it once, you know, I'm gonna keep doing the same thing for another like 20 minutes, and I can't just keep telling you the same thing for 20 minutes. So um, the idea is that it would be while I'm rendering, I'll talk to you about anything else that you may be interested in. All right, so I think that's pretty good for the leather. Now, I'm not actually texturing this at all, and actually a lot of Japanese art really doesn't do a lot of texturing. More Western style art does texture stuff a lot more. But I usually keep that as like a last step in case it feels like it doesn't quite work right, and then I might add some texture afterwards. So what do we have on our next layer? Next layer looks like it's this kind of grayish color. This is kind of, I think it's gonna be a cloth. Turn that into a clipping layer. All right. And here's my little color bean here to tell me the colors that I have. So this is going to be my gradation color. So let's select that and add some gradations to this. So I was pretty excited about E3 this year. I mentioned last year actually I'm a pretty big Bethesda guy. So Bethesda's basically the only one I really paid a lot of attention to. I'm sure there's some other news too that was interesting, but for me it was mostly Bethesda's where I kind of put all my attention. But last year I remember a lot of people were disappointed in Bethesda because they didn't announce any like new really like anticipated games, I guess. But I actually did a video because I actually liked I actually liked it last year because they mentioned that they were going to do VR, and I also am a proud owner of a HTC Vive, so I was really happy to hear that they had started doing VR, and I bought Skyrim VR when it came out. Actually, I bought Fallout 4 VR first, and then Skyrim. But I kind of forgot about Fallout 4 after Skyrim came out because I mean I love Fallout, but I think like I said earlier, I'm a fantasy. I'm a roots in like JRPG, not JRPG, D&D fantasy style like Lord of the Rings stuff. So Elder Scrolls is probably more my sort of atmosphere, I guess you would call it. So I've been playing a lot of Elder Scrolls Skyrim in VR, and it is a lot of fun. Like, if you don't have VR, it's really hard to describe, but the intensity of like fighting a dragon in VR is just amazing. Now, if I didn't mod the game, I don't know if it'd be the same because from what I can tell, non-modded Skyrim. Like I watch a lot of videos of people that play vanilla Skyrim, and I think it's if you can enjoy vanilla Skyrim, that's great. But I know that there's sometimes the way that they would fight, it's kind of similar to like World of Warcraft or MMORPG, where you just kind of run up to your enemy and you just exchange blows until one of you die, and you just like manage your health bar basically. So like, you know, watch your health bar, make sure that your health bar stays kind of high, and then make sure the enemy's health bar is dropping faster than yours. And that's definitely a legitimate way to play the game. But when I play on mine with it modded, like it's not about managing your health bar. It's about not getting hit because, I mean, it's I have a realistic combat mod in there, so 1 or 2 hits can kill me in most encounters. Like even when I'm just fighting like bandits and I'm like level 20, still like a bandit with an axe can kill me in like maybe 3 hits, and I still get one shot by arrows sometimes. So arrows are kind of annoying, but like that teaches you that when you're in the combat scenario that you have to like weave, like bob and weave and like dodge the arrows. You have to like weave back and forth, and then to let me get the next color. Yeah, which one was it? Was this one? Yeah, okay. and then to avoid like taking hits from like a um, an axe, you learn that you learn how to stun your opponents. Like you watch to see when they're gonna attack, and you do like a shield bash or something, and then you um, I don't I don't want to go side tangent too much on that, but like it's pretty intense combat. So then that on top of virtual reality, it's like really intense, especially when you have a dragon and the dragon like it lands in front of you and you, like literally the dragon it because it's not just a little a 3D object on a screen anymore. It's an actual like large beast that you can see, and it looks like I know physically it's really just a something that's being projected on a screen in front of your eyes, but because of how the VR tricks you, it makes it look like it actually is like a huge like giant beast that's just like landing in front of you and roaring, and you know that it's like it's gonna breathe fire, and so you're like freaked out because the fire can kill you. At least in my modded version, it kills you in either one hit or very quickly after a hit. So you're automatically like looking around, and like you're moving your head back and forth looking for places to hide, like finding a rock to hide under, or like finding like some like broken building pieces or something to duck under. And yeah, it's hard to describe, but it's quite intense and enjoyable. And so so I was happy that they made the VR. And I mean it's not everything that I was hoping for, because I think that essentially VR how do I say it was essentially just a port of the non VR version into VR. So it doesn't have like the best UI like or the user experience. There's a lot of things about it that are just kind of you like, for example, you're in virtual reality. You're actually holding a sword. You're actually like pulling an arrow and everything, knocking an arrow and like shooting and everything. But then when you want to change weapons, you have to open up a menu and then navigate through a menu and then select the weapon that you want. And you end up doing that a lot, because especially if like the way that I used to play Skyrim, I haven't been doing it as much in VR, just because it's kind of annoying to go through menus. But the way I used to play is I would shoot an arrow, and then I would switch weapons while they're coming at me, and then once they get closer, I would start hitting them with like a sword or whatnot. But what was I saying? There we go. Kind of lost track of what I was saying. Yeah, it's probably shaded enough for there. Let's get the highlight. Which color was that? This one? Okay. But anyways, yeah, I've been enjoying that a lot. So this year's Bethesda, they it sounds like they're still kind of thinking of VR a lot, and that was another thing I was kind of happy about. I don't know if I'm super stoked about the new Elder Scrolls Blades game or not. It looks like it has a lot of potential, but I have to kind of wait and see when it comes out. But I am happy that they are still thinking about VR, because they said that's going to be compatible for VR as well, which makes me kind of hopeful that maybe they'll have more games in the future that will be actually made from the ground up with VR in mind. Because I guess that goes back to what I was saying then. Okay, so since Skyrim UI was not made with VR in mind, it's like you're just navigating through systems and navigating through menus and stuff. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel right as immersive in VR. So hopefully in their future games, they'll be thinking of VR from the beginning, so the actual UI will actually have that in mind, and then you can have things like, instead of actually going through a menu to find your next item or whatever, your next weapon, you can just like reach down to your hip and like pull out a sword, or like reach behind your back and pull out a bow or something. But we'll see how that goes. But Skyrim has helped my VR experience immensely, because up until now, VR, it's really great. There's a lot of really immersive experiences, but since they aren't AAA games and they aren't like full-on productions, they're generally things that you can play for a couple hours and then be done with. Whereas Skyrim, I've been playing for hours on end, and it's the second virtual reality game that's done that for me. The first one was Elite Dangerous. which is another game that's originally a PC game that was then adapted for VR and for PlayStation and other consoles as well. Oops, that's not the right layer. But also, if there's a specific type of thing you'd like to see me draw in future streams, let me know that as well. I'm pretty open at the moment. Just trying to figure out ways to get some personal drawing time done outside of work. Okay. That's pretty good. Move on to the next layer. What do we got next? Okay, so now we're going to do the kind of gold metallic layer. And those are always pretty fun because you can do a lot of like highlights and things. So first we have a sort of greenish color for our gradient. Next we'll have our darker color. And actually might add another color for the metallic area because I want to give it sort of that sheen or that kind of like really metallic type of feel to it. So I don't know if the three tones that we've been using with the other layers will do the trick or not, but we'll see. It might be interesting in the future to do some kind of, what do you call it, material renders, doing things like gems or like different types of metals and crystals and water and things like that. Actually, that actually might be a good idea to do some like studies. I was actually thinking to make, I wasn't sure if I was going to do it on stream or not, but just personally I want to do a kind of hypothetical series of illustrations for a crafting game where you would have like all the different side of like crafting materials and then draw the different icons for each material. And I think it's something I want to do personally just to kind of like have my own kind of collection and add to my portfolio. Thing is, I don't know if that'd be interesting as a stream or not, because it would like literally be like days of me doing just all the same sort of I mean, they wouldn't be the same, it'd be different types of materials, but it'd be like I don't know, like drawing gold ore one day and then drawing a silver ingot the next day and then drawing like, you know, what else you got? Like silver ingot, gold ore, like some type of powder, you know, So as an artist, I find it interesting because it's just like it's a lot of like textures and like rendering and just figuring out how to make these materials look right. You know, like a plank of wood, um, you know, things like that. But in terms of a stream, it may not be the most entertaining thing to watch for a long period of time. All right, down here. Actually, there's another method that I might try next time. Might be a little bit faster. So like right now I'm doing layer by layer, but there's another method where you can actually just um, how you'd say you you do all the shadows and highlights and everything in black and white, and then you just convert the shadows and highlights that you have in that layer to colors that you then add to all the other layers. It's not as precise, and so a lot of times when I'm doing a professional thing, I don't necessarily do that because it's easy to end up with mistakes where like say the the shades and the colors aren't perfectly confined in their assigned spaces, but it is a lot faster, and if once you zoom out, it basically looks the same. So um, it it's like not no, there's no really noticeable difference. So if you're doing concept work and things like that's probably a little bit faster and easier to do. So I might do that next time. All right. It's starting to get a little bit of that metallic feel. So now we're going to add the highlight. That should hopefully kick it up a notch. Also, if you guys have a preference about it, when I'm doing streams, if you want to hear more about art-related topics, gaming-related topics, or Japan-related topics, let me know. I probably will not limit it to just one topic, but it would be good to just have sort of an idea of what the people who are tuning in are generally tuning in for. I noticed this time in the game that we released at my work, I was looking at it, and some of the illustrations I did for the icons, some of them are good, but a couple of them they're kind of lacking in contrast. I noticed, so that may be something I'll have to keep in mind. And and it might be something for you if you think that's something that you struggle with as well. You might want to check out because the weird thing is though I didn't really think I struggled with it at all. I mean, I thought I was doing pretty good. Like I would do my levels, you know, with like the Photoshop levels to make sure that there was a good range from dark to light. But when it was actually put in the game and it was like it might be partly because of the way that the Japanese UIs are, is that they're very kind of like they have a lot of like very stark gradations and like colors and contrasts and things. And so when it was compared to the background of the UI, it kind of looked a little like what's the word, pastelish. And it actually might be because in my old company I did a lot of illustrations of like weapons, and it was for a game that was it was how would I describe it? It was a game that was targeted primarily for female users, and so it had kind of a pastel kind of feel to it. Even though they were actually weapons, like the weapons, they were supposed to look kind of I guess I don't know, pretty and whatnot. So you wouldn't use a lot of really dark colors. It would be very pastelish, and so maybe I still have that somewhere in my subconscious where I was drawing the icons and I didn't push it enough, so it kind of had that pastel feeling, whereas the rest of the UI for this particular game was very like starkly contrasty. Um, so I almost want to like go and just grab the images and like I bump up the Photoshop levels on it and then give it back to my supervisor and be like, hey, can you replace these? Like I know no one's complaining, but I just looked at it afterwards and I could kind of tell that it doesn't look like it's fitting in with the background as well as it should. Yeah, I really want to do a video where I show you the game that I'm working on too, or the game that I guess I am working on, the one that released. Um, I just have to talk with my with the people at work to make sure that it's okay for me to mention it. I think it probably would be. I mean, I know it's okay for me to mention. I just don't know if I should say the name. Unfortunately, though, even if I did say it, it's not something that you could play most likely because it's only on the I think it's only released in Japan. Um, they have plans to possibly release it in like Korea in the future, but you'd have to change your iOS or your Android region or something to like the Japanese Apple Store or the Japanese Play Store or whatever. But I was kind of pleasantly surprised by it. I was really scared because I'm not a big fan of the kind of freemium model games, and I was really scared that it was going to be a straight up, like paywall type of thing where you can't really progress in the game unless you spend a certain amount of money in it, and it wouldn't be skill based. It would just be like just getting the best stats and collecting the best characters and the best cards and whatnot. But then when it came out, I played it for a while. I was like, hey, it's actually, I mean, it is a free to play game with microtransactions, so that's kind of unavoidable with the way that the market is right now in terms of mobile, at least. Maybe one day I'll get out of mobile and I won't have to worry about that. But for mobile, that's kind of unavoidable. But I was playing and I was like, wow, like I can just play like the hardest stages and I can still win because it is very much skill based. And so like if you wanted to do microtransactions to increase your character and like make the game easier, you could do that. And I think it's good for like people who don't want to focus so much on gameplay and want to just focus on advancing their characters or like collecting the different cards or whatever. But for a person who wants to focus on the gameplay, it's there. You could just pick the hardest stage, and because basically the way that it worked is that if your characters have parameters, right? But and so if you pick a very hard stage, you're gonna die in one hit if you get hit. But it is skill based in such a way that if you're good enough, you can actually beat a stage without getting hit. So it's like, oh, okay, so this is actually possible to play. And then I was actually kind of playing it like in a semi Dark Souls type of way, where I was like playing a stage that was way too difficult for me, but I would just like play it like 5-6 times in a row, like die and then die and then die and die, and then like maybe the 8th or 12th time I'd finally beat the stage. Like, yes, I beat it. It's like it kind of gave me that kind of Dark Souls like thrill, and it's like that's not something you usually get from mobile games. But I really wish they would release it for the whole world and not just Japan. But if things are to be believed, like maybe that will change in the future, but we'll see. All right, so I put that. I'm going to do one more layer, and the next layer, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use I'm actually not sure what this is called in English. It's in my my UI for my Clip Studio is Japanese, so it's called the Hakko layer. It's kind of like a screen layer, but it's a little bit different. Let me actually switch to the view that you can see my my UI, so you can hopefully get an idea of that. Here we go. All right, so add another layer, and let's see if I scroll down. There's screen and then 2 underneath screen. That's hopefully it's the same order in English. I don't know, but this is the layer I use a lot for kind of metallic type of illustrations. I think the screen layer would work as well, but I like this layer seems to give you that really a really contrasty. I don't know if you can see how like it really like bumps that up. Like automatically when I just put that on there, it automatically starts looking more like metal. So this is probably one of my favorite layers for using for metal. That's right. I'm just going to place the general areas that I want it to shine, and then I'm going to, what's the word? Modify it afterwards and kind of like clean it up, I guess. So what should I do for next week? I mean, the simplest thing to do is just to do like a goblin or something to get kind of back warmed up into the fantasy side of drawing. Or I could try doing a tank or a castle. Because if I were to do just a goblin, I think that'd just be like a warm up for me to just kind of get back into that sort of style. I don't know if it'd be a tutorial in any particular way. Oh, I forgot to do highlights on her shoelaces. All right, we have to come back to do that later if we remember. But if I were to do like the tank or the castle, then I could actually go into a lot of like talk about how to do perspective in Clip Studio. Although I don't know, I did a couple other perspective videos, and it didn't seem to get a lot of traction. So I don't know, maybe people are kind of intimidated by perspective. I don't know. I know that when I was in art school, a lot of kids that I was in school with, they really did not like perspective. But I kind of like it. I don't know. For some reason, I guess I like having somewhat defined rules, even within my artistic stuff. Could be because my father was a very logical person, while my mother was very I guess like I don't know, aesthetic or emotional. I don't know. So like I probably get both of those, where I have like the artistic side, but then I also have the super logical side. So I like being artistic within like logical bounds, which I don't know if that's a super good thing or a super bad thing. It's probably good, I think. I don't know, but it tends to make me like those sort of systems, like perspective and things where you have actually defined rules about how you're supposed to put things down and how the lines are supposed to connect to each other and whatnot. I'm just going to go through and delete some of the areas where it has an edge, so that should bring out the edge a little bit more. Actually, that one I think I'm going to keep it, because since her hand is facing upwards, it probably would reflect light there. All right, I think that looks pretty good. That definitely has the metal sheen to it now. All right, awesome. See, it's amazing how just that one layer changes it. Like here, it is kind of metalish, but it could kind of be just like a yellowish leather maybe. But the moment you do this, it's like, okay, yeah, that's metal, you know. All right, and then this is another metal layer, but this one's gonna be a silverish metal, and this should be pretty quick because I think there's only one layer to it. Where did it go? Oh, there it is. Oh, okay, interesting. So now this layer, it's the same color, but the top we're gonna make a metal texture, and the bottom is gonna be cloth. So we're gonna have just a slightly different approach to which area we to both areas. So first, just get our gradation color. Throw that in like so. Fade it up with our water brush. Go back down here. And I'm doing this kind of almost subconsciously, but you may have noticed that with the metal area up top, I tried to keep a little bit sharper of a contrast with the gradation, whereas down here I'm kind of making it more smooth gradation from the bottom to the top, so that it's not as stark as like up here. You can see that there still is this kind of open space here and here, and I left that on purpose because metal has more of those sort of abrupt tone changes. And there's a little bit over here as well. All right, that was quick. So now next we have our shadow layer. So let's go over here, get our shadow. You know, I'm looking at this now. I don't think this is a good color for shadows, but we'll see what it looks like. Maybe we'll have to add another one. So yeah, I guess it's kind of shadowy. I feel like it should be a little bit less saturated though, so I'm gonna drop that down a little bit. Yeah, that's probably a little better. Okay. And once again, here we have a mistake here where the color is not lining up properly. If this was a professional work that was going to be showed up in the game, I would fix that. But for right now, okay, fine. Let's try to fix it. Let's see, what layer is that? This one? Okay, so let's switch colors. Take our base color again. All right, and just fill that in. There we go. All right, continue. Switching back. Now, once again, since this is metal, I'm trying to keep sort of a reflective light type of feel to it, so I'm not necessarily going to shade all the way to the edge. Now another thing, since there is this kind of pattern on here, it might be good to complement that with our shading. So let's go through here a little bit. Yeah, probably complement a little bit more with the highlights later. But for now, that's probably good enough. All right. Okay. All right, and then back down here. Now this is not metal, so we're going to make sure that these are smoothed out a lot more. Don't know if I'm liking that. Let's smooth out the whole thing. Yeah, actually, it might be better to do the opposite. So let's fill in the whole area like this, and then we'll take away from it to give sort of like some ripples. Although I don't know how many ripples something like this would actually have. I don't think it actually would have much. But I want to have something so it doesn't feel too flat. Maybe something toward the top. I don't know. This would be the point where you would usually look for reference if you had more time. But I don't know, that seems to be okay. So now we're going to try to take away and give it a little bit of a feel that there's ripples and things going on down there, but don't want to push it too far, or else it's kind of look weird. And I think I mentioned it in other streams, but if you have missed it before, I am primarily using just your standard, I'm using standard pencil and watercolor brush. Watercolor brush is generally what I use for the shading, and pencil just to put down the colors. And if I want a very flat color without any shading, I would use the pens, like the ink pens. All right, so that's a good start. And then second to lastly, we'll do the highlights. highlights. Okay. I think this is where I'm going to kind of try to complement this pattern a little bit more. Not too bad, not too shabby. I don't know if these actually need a lot of highlights, but let's just put it down and see how it looks first. Okey-doke. Trying to keep that just as soft as possible while still having some kind of interesting textures going on. Honestly, it might be easier just to make it completely gradiated, but because I don't know if there actually would be a lot of texture with that, but yeah, for now, let's just keep it as it is. Yeah, I think I really should look for reference for something like that. Okay, and then the last one is going to be the Hako layer, which unfortunately I do not remember what that is called in English, but here we go. And I'm using the same color as the highlights here. All right, I think that'll work. So how many lower layers do we got? Let's see. What is it? What layer is this? I actually don't see what this is. Is this an empty layer? How would I, let's see. Isolate this layer. It does indeed seem to appear to be an empty layer. Okay, so we're going to delete that. One less layer to worry about. What's this layer? All right, so it looks like the only two things we have left is her skin tone and these crystals and like little jewelry elements she has. I imagine the jewelry generally would take me a lot longer, but I'm gonna just try to do it very quickly today. So, and the reason it generally takes a lot longer is that I generally spend a lot of time trying to make it actually look very, what's the word, crystal-like. I'd actually even get references to see how things what's the word, how crystals tend to reflect light, because they reflect light in a very different way than other materials. That's another reason why I thought it would be kind of interesting to do a series where I just go through different materials and make sort of like a hypothetical crafting game icon list. But for now, we'll just do kind of a haphazard attempt where it will look more or less okay. I mean, they're so small that it probably wouldn't even matter if it was a an actual professional illustration even. Was it just on the top of her body? Oh no, there's one down there, okay. Oh, also, one other thing, like, it's kind of hard for me to figure out the best time to do these streams because of the time difference. So I can definitely push it a little like an hour earlier or an hour later if that would help anyone. Let me know. In case you didn't know, right now I'm not actually adding any color. I'm just erasing the color that I just put down. Sometimes Clip Studio does this thing where even if you're using your eraser, it still puts color down. You have to like pull it off of the pad for a second, tablet for a second, for it to register that you're using a eraser. All right, and next layer is going to be the actual dark shadows. Although I feel like, did I use the shadow? Is that my shadows? I feel like I might have actually already used a shadow layer. Hold on a second. What color is this? No, that is the... Is this the same color? Doesn't look like it. Yeah, so I think what I just did was the shadow layer. So now this layer should be the gradation. I did it in the opposite order for some reason. I don't know if that actually even did anything. Well, it may have helped a little bit, I don't know. Yeah, it probably wasn't that important. But anyways, go to highlight layer. Actually, I bet it'd probably be better if I took that last gradation layer, and if I change that to the highlight color, that might actually look okay. Let's see. This layer, right? Yeah, I think I like that better. See how that kind of just gives it a little bit of a bump there? Cool. And now the highlight, instead of using that color, we'll use a even lighter color. We'll use something closer to white for highlights. Alright, looks pretty good. And then the last thing, once again, Hako layer. And the only difference here is that instead of like having a sharp kind of streaks of color, you want to have a kind of, I don't know what we call it, like a glow effect, I guess. So we're going to take our Hako layer, and let's actually take the base color for this. Or maybe this, maybe the highlight color, I don't know, let's see. There you go. Yeah, that looks pretty good. So you see how you just kind of like put a little dash of it in the middle, and then after that you kind of blend it out. And what that tends to do is it gives it kind of a shimmering effect or a glowing effect where it feels that it's not just an opaque object, but that the light actually is going inside and then bouncing off, which is what happens inside of gems and crystals to some extent, although each one kind of uses light in a different way. All right, and I'm running out of time for today, so I wanted to finish this today, but we still have her skin tone. Let me see if I can finish that in the next 5 minutes, and then we'll call it a day. So where was her skin tone? Here we go. So first off, we're just going to add areas where you have blood cells that would be more visible, so it has kind of a pinkish hue to them. I'm not exactly sure where those areas would be, but you know, things like the nose and like their hands and things generally have a little bit more of a pinkish hue to them. Let's go ahead and just kind of use it as a gradient, I suppose. And then we could adjust it later. Okay, so now I'm not adding any new color, I'm just deleting the color that was there. Okay, and now for a shadow. This is always tough because I'm used to kind of being... Oh, I forgot to put by her neck. Probably should have some blush there. Okay. So when you're doing it realistically, you use a lot of shadows, but in these sort of kind of anime style illustrations, you don't really overly shadow things. So you have to be kind of, what's the word? Strategic about where you place your shadows, and you can't really go crazy with it, or else it kind of destroys the kind of aesthetic that you're looking for. Also be sure to think of where shadows would fall from, like clothing or items that she's has on or carrying or anything. Oh, so looks like we have a question. Sorry, I didn't notice you for a second. So why does she not have emotions? If you add it, will make your art look so much better. Oh yeah, good question. I don't know. I just didn't. I wasn't really thinking about it too much. This particular one was sort of just a warm up sketch, I guess. Um, it would be a good exercise to do a series of emotions. Actually, there was a job I did before where I had to make characters that were for a game, and it was kind of a flash animation. So you would have to draw the character, and then you would draw all the different emotions for them. And that actually might be part of the reason why I didn't do emotions on here, because so if I go to the layer of her face, right? Let's see, where is it? Where is her face? There you go. Almost there. That's that. Yeah, sorry, I have so many layers. But basically, all these layers here are separate. So if I if I choose to in the future, like her eyes here, this all should actually be in one folder. Let me put this in one folder. That would be So let's see where we got. I think it's from her eyes down to her head. Actually, I think it's right before her head, maybe. Okay, not quite everything. I think all these. Well, so usually I would probably have this separate, but essentially the idea is that you want to have her entire face to be on a separate layer. And so if like when I was doing that flash animation thing, you would draw the eye. It's sort of like it's similar to saying an idle animation where it's your like your default expression. And then after you've drawn that, then you could go in and you could actually add all the different expressions. So like when I was doing that job, we had to do, I remember we had to do anger, we had to do like crying, we had to do like happy, like sad. I forgot, there was like six of them I think, and you would do each expression, right? And then so you could then switch the layers to have the different expressions in her face. And the other thing is that I mentioned in the first stream, I think, where I had it separated with different layers for each part of her body. Like her arm was a different layer. If I were to make this for a game today where they're doing like a flash animation, you would actually have each part of her body separatable so that you could then animate them to add to the emotion. So you could have like the actual animation show like when she's happy, maybe her she would like jump up and down, or like she would like slouch her shoulders or something when she's sad and things like that. So I think maybe a simple answer to your question is that I I look at myself as more of a game artist rather than an illustrator. So an illustrator is thinking of their illustration as sort of the final product, and that this is the product that's going to convey like everything they want to convey. So they're probably thinking about the scene and like what type of emotions they want them to have and things like that. For me, I guess because of the way that I've been working, I think of it more as just I'm making an asset. So this is just like this is an asset that can be used. That if they wanted to add emotions and things, that's all doable. And I kind of make it so that that can be done in the future. So that's why that's why I have so many layers here, so that no matter what comes up in the future, if I decide that I want to put this in a game or something, I can do that. I can add emotions to it. I can add animations to it. Like whatever I choose. Hopefully that is of some help. Let's see here. はじめまして、私は星猫です。Nice to have you here, Hoshineko, Starcat. MKOK, didn't you do manga before? Yes, yes. Hold on, let me just make sure I didn't miss any questions. All right, cool. Yeah, I did manga for, well, so here's the thing. I should specify. I went to a manga school for 3 years, and I was planning to become a manga artist. And I even went to like Young Jump. I went to Jump, Young Jump, lots of different places, and I eventually actually found an editor at Young Jump that was willing to work with me. And I go into this in my video of why I am not a mangaka, but eventually I discovered that I fit better into the gaming side of things than the manga side. I could say in short, basically that was just because. And I can't really say it in short. There's so many reasons, but. I think that for the most part, when I want to do manga because I like art and I want to tell a story with my art. But I think to be a mangaka, you really have to be a part of sort of the manga culture, particularly if you're in Japan. You have to really understand what the readers are looking for. And it seemed like the stuff I was producing was not what the readers wanted, and what the editor was wanting me to produce wasn't what I wanted to produce. So I kind of felt like it wasn't probably the right fit for me. And also there's other things in terms of like getting a visa, where you don't get a visa as a manga artist in Japan generally. It's you're just you're basically a freelance artist, but you're being hired by you're being paid by a magazine that publishes your work, and you have an ongoing relationship with them, but you're not sponsored by them. So that means that the government doesn't give you a visa right away. And so there was just a whole bunch of issues that I go into in my video why I'm not a mangaka. But so the end of the road was that I decided to do to do game instead, and I feel like that is a much better fit for me. All right, so I think, I forgot her other hand. Damn it, completely forgot about this hand. I think this hand is actually, oh no, there it is. Okay, good. I thought it was on another layer for a second there. Yeah, but my life has been a long process of figuring out where I fit into things. Like even earlier, I was talking about illustration and how, I used to think that I was going to be an illustrator, but then I realized that the way I approach art is very different. Like, who was it that mentioned the emotions? Prime Simon. How did I pronounce your name? Simon. Let me know if I'm pronouncing it correctly. Prima Simon. See, but like you mentioned about the about what is it the emotions, like that's another thing is just like I noticed that when I was doing illustrations I was not really focusing on the story behind the illustration as much, and that's something that you really need to do as an illustrator. You really need to think about what is this character doing, like why are they in this situation, what are they thinking about, and you want your illustration to tell a story. And I found that for me I was more thinking about I have this concept of this world I want to create. Like it kind of goes back to when I was doing D&D. I would have this world, and I have all these characters I want to put in that world. But I wouldn't be necessarily thinking about I want to draw this one scene in the world. It'd be more like I want to just kind of make all these concepts, which kind of fits into what I'm doing now. Is mostly a concept work. So I don't know. It's a long process of trying lots of different things and figuring out where you fit in the best. And it's tough because at first, and especially when I was in art school, and that's another video I'm going to do about like the difference between art school and actual on the job training. Is I was in art school, and the general idea was that you're going to be an artist, and like they don't really define what does that mean that you're going to be an artist, because there's so many different ways you can go with art, and they don't really talk about that. And then once I started in my professional career, I found out that yeah, it's not that simple. Like there's a difference between an illustrator and a designer. There's a difference between like a game artist and like a manga artist, and I mean you could definitely kind of cross-platform. I don't know if that's the right word, but you can kind of cross-pollinate between the different styles and kind of do many different things and have many different hats. But there's a kind of a different approach to each different aspect, and it was a long process for me at least to figure out what kind of artist exactly do I want to be. And I still don't know 100%, but I feel like I've gotten a lot closer. But okay, I think that basically finishes this illustration. And like I said, in the future, if I wanted to use this for a game, I could go ahead and add animation and like break up the different layers and add like expressions and different things. But for this illustration for today, I think that will be it. Last thing, I just have to make sure to turn off all the layers that I had marked here in red, because those are layers that I don't actually want to be in the final illustration. And the background layer, if you noticed, it's not white because I want to be able to see the contrast between the lights and the darks. But if I were to actually save this, I would take that out and then save it as a PNG with the what you call it, transparent background. So that way you can use it in different like backgrounds and different cases, especially with a game design and a game studio's workflow. A lot of times the illustrations that you make are going to be on promotional material. They're going to be on like advertisements, and they're always going to be changing the background. They might be wanting you to adjust like the positions of different things. So it's always good to keep in mind that you want your layers to be malleable in the future. So you don't want to think of it as a one final product. If you're going into game illustration as a game design or art, if you're just going to be a full-time illustrator, then yeah, you don't have to worry so much about that. All right, so last question looks like we have. So I really want to become a mangaka, and I draw every in Japanese style, and I want to tell my story. Is it worth my time, or can I make it? I know the risks and everything, but I just need to know. All right, cool. So good, very good question. So let's see here. Oh, salmon like the fish. All right, cool. So yeah, I'm sorry. Like the screen is kind of, your comments are on a different screen, and from here the L looked like an I. That was throwing me off. Okay, I can see now it's salmon. Okay, prime salmon. Awesome. So let's see here. Do you want to be a mangaka in Japan or a mangaka in your home country? Because I think that would make a big difference. From what I've seen outside of Japan, a lot of the issues that come up aren't as big of a deal outside of Japan, because Japan has a very kind of islander mentality where there's a very specific type of work that they want you to do, a specific type of art that they want you to do, and a specific type of story they want you to tell. Whereas outside of Japan, I've found that people are generally more open to different ideas, different expressions and things. And also there's the language issue where if first off, so I'll tell you, so this is how I'll answer. I'll tell you the issues you have in Japan, and then just keep in mind that these may not be an issue if you're not wanting to be a manga artist in Japan. But in Japan, first off, you're going to have to speak Japanese, or you're going to have to already be a well-established artist that has a very famous name that they'll be willing to put up with you having a translator. Um, Second thing is you won't have a visa just from being a manga artist. So you're gonna have to try to find a way to secure your visa to be able to stay here, whether you have like some type of special status, or you have a family member that lives in Japan or something. I don't know, but you're gonna have to you won't be able to get a work visa as working as a manga artist. Um, the other thing is in terms of the style and in terms of the actual story. The question that came up to me was when I was in school. They said that if you want to be a manga artist, you have to love manga. You have to really love it. And I was like, oh yeah, of course I love manga. And they said like, no, it has to like really like you have to be the point where you can't live without manga. And then if that's true, then go ahead and pursue it. But if not, then maybe it's not the right thing for you. And at that time, I heard that and I thought, well, of course manga is everything for me because that was all I wanted to do. But I didn't realize that he wasn't talking about that. He didn't mean that you can't live without doing manga. It means that you can't live without the manga like culture that we have here. So you want to, how do I say? Yeah, there you go. Like reading manga every day, and that's what I noticed for myself is that after I stopped pursuing manga, I I read manga maybe once every month or so, or maybe even more than that. Whereas games, I play games every day, or maybe I don't go more than 2 to 3 days without playing a video game. So that's where I realized that my heart was really in the video game culture more than the manga culture. But if you're in the case where you are actually an active part of like sort of the fan base of manga, where you're reading manga every day and you're consuming it and you understand what people who read manga are looking for in the manga, then yeah. So Hirohiko Araki is your favorite mangaka. I'm not. Do I know who he does? What has he made? What has he made? Or she? I don't actually remember. Was that Araki? Is that what type of work have they made? I'm not familiar with that one. Hiroaki. Oh, JoJo. Okay, awesome. Yeah. So that is that's a very kind of unique style. So the other issue you might run into, and I'll bring this up, is that I really liked like Vagabond and Berserk and manga like that, and I wanted to do manga like that, and I went to magazines and I told them that's what I want to do. And what I think it was Magazine. It was the company that produces. No, I think it was Sunday Comics. I don't remember, but one of the editors, he told me, "All right, I understand that you want to do that, but that is art." And the mangaka that are able to do that, they're able to do that because they're already established in the industry, and they know that whatever they do will sell, so that they will so they can do basically what they want. But in order to get into the industry, you have to make a product first. And right now, the products that they want is sort of like the moe style. Well, at least that was 5 years ago when I was trying to be an artist. I don't know if it's the same now. When I was trying to be a mangaka, I don't know if it's the exact same now. But so they may try to push you to conform to a particular style. So you have to look at what is the most, like, basically do this and type in like what the most popular manga is in Japan, and then look at those styles. And if you think you can mimic those styles, then I think that's a good fit, and it'll be easy for you to get in. Um, Berserk is an amazing manga, but it is not a good anime. The old anime was okay. The new one is horrid. Yeah, the newer version was really bad, and the old one was okay, but then it stopped at the worst possible place to stop. Yeah. But okay, I don't know. Let me know if that answers your question to some extent. It's not a simple yes or no answer. It's more just about whether you think you fit for it or not. I think it is worth it if that's what you want to do, and that's your pursuit. You should not let anything stop you. Um, oh no, my pleasure. But yeah, just keep in mind that there will be pressures to kind of conform to the popular styles. So take a look at the popular styles, see how well you can. I guess this is the easier way to think it. Try to figure out what product you could present, because you want your goal is to eventually to make art, but in order to get in the door, you have to present a product. And when you're doing a product, you have to think of what's popular. So you have to look at the sort of like what is popular in the market right now, and see if you have a place that you could fit in there. And if you can, then you market that and you go to the places here. Yeah, a unique style. Yeah, that's where I came, where I ran into, where my style was also kind of unique. It was a kind of a combination of things I liked and where I wanted to push things, and that's not what he wanted me to do. Like the editor that I went to, he was telling me like, oh, this is, you have a lot of artistic talent, but like your story doesn't fit. So he kind of pushed me into making a story about like being a foreigner in Japan and like sort of like a slice of life type of comic. And I was like, this is not really what I wanted to be doing. So, but that's what they wanted. And I mean, if you're willing to just kind of like do what they want for a while until you get established. And the other thing is, instead of, you could just break the system entirely and just forget about the established like comic magazines and just do your own thing online. And if you could get a following online, then you could come in and if you still want to go in and be published in a magazine in Japan or something, then you could come in and be like, hey, I have this comic and it has 100,000 fans or whatever, and or like 500,000 fans, whatever, and you could be like, I want this published. And then now it's not just them looking at you as just some new person with this radical idea that's never been tested, but they see you with a new person with a radical idea that actually has a following, and then that will help you get in the door, I think. But all right, so I think that's all for today. I'm just gonna save this out real quick, and if you have, I'll give you a chance to ask any last questions before I finish the stream. But it's getting a little late, so let's hear. Your friend's dad was a mangaka? That's awesome. Was he a mangaka in Japan, or was he just a mangaka in a different country, or what? Yeah, I wish I knew. So I wish I had a dad who was a mangaka. I'm sure they would be able to teach me a lot. I know some mangaka now. Oh, in Japan? That's awesome. I know some mangaka now at my work. Like there was actually a guy who came into. He was an artist that started working with us at our studio, and he just recently quit to go back to manga. And oh, so that's another thing I should bring up before I close is that the guy who was he was a professional mangaka. He quit, and then I guess because it's kind of hard to be established in manga. Because the other thing you have to keep in mind is that you're gonna do a lot of work without getting paid because it's a lot of work just trying to get to the status of getting paid. So or like having your own series. So the guy he came, he worked at the game studio. Then he quit, and now he's going back to manga, but he's going to work as an assistant. So that might be a good way to get in the door is to work as an assistant. And apparently, you can make about $100 per day doing that. Apparently, according to him, and a day could be 8 to 10 hours, so or possibly longer. But so it is a very work intensive day, but it is definitely a way to make a little bit of money and also increase your skills exponentially while you do it. All right, so I think I need to get going, but thank you all for joining me for the stream today. You make it an amazing time, and I hope to have more in the future. So I'll figure out exactly what I want to draw for next week. And until next time, just keep drawing, keep at it. I really have to think of a really good outro for my videos, but just dream big, shoot for the stars, and go for it. Till next time, Yoroshiku.